All right, we are live. Okay, guys, we are going to go through the museum for a little bit, and around 12:30, we're going to come back down here, and we're going to meet to go to Charles Wesley's house. We can't go to the inside because of the repairs. Ben is posting the links that you hear and echo. But we will see the outside, and we'll be going with Paul for that. So let me flip around my camera, and you guys can see what I see. All right, first off, the pulpit. A number of people are taking photos there, but as you just heard from David, if you take a photo here, you're being ordained to preach and take the gospel out to the world, so you better be ready. All right, I'm gonna head to the back. So, a few things of note in this space. We've got some books over here. Here are the benches that David was talking about. He said, you know, this room would have been all benches, so it could be a flexible space, and so you can move around, as opposed to the pews, which we were sitting in. And I think he said these are 20th century pews, meant to look like 19th century pews for an 18th century building, something like that. There is the clock that he alluded to about how it was posted on the side, so that way you could see it from the pulpit. And the upper pulpit, where people are standing right now, is where he would have preached. You can see it from the pulpit, but you can also see it from, not pews, but congregation. One thing kind of interesting, like you have to open these doors to get in. That was interesting to me. Okay, we're gonna go upstairs. It says right here, a place for prayer. There is a place to sit and pray up these stairs. So we'll go up. Have a little note about Methodism today. Evidently, Beyonce, Nelson Mandela, and Michael Eavis of Glastonbury Festival fame belong to Methodist churches. I didn't know that. That's cool. And I got a note here about what Methodism is. Beginning as a Christian movement in the 18th century England, founded by three Church of England clergymen, John Wesley, Charles Wesley, and George Whitefield. Today, it is an international Christian church with over 75 million members worldwide. Okay. And you can see right here, we've got some other prominent Methodists, Francis Asbury, Thomas Coke. They took Methodism to the United States, and they would have come through here. And you might remember that David made the point that they would have only stayed for a few days. This is not a place where you stay forever and ever. Like, you stay and you go out. Come here, you preach, and then you go out. Oh, wow. Check this out. All right, and apologies for this low connection. I'm not connecting to the Wi-Fi right now, just because we might be leaving soon. Well, I guess I could connect to the Wi-Fi. Stand by. But I want you guys to see right here. This is the area that they talked about being for prayer, and you see, again, benches. And if you go across the way, I'll just walk here. You can see there's an identical area right there. And this is what the space looks like from up above. All right. So we'll head down from here. One of the lovely things about being 5'3" is that you get all these mind your head pictures, and or signs, and you really don't have to do anything about them. There's a sign about about the new room where we are right now. We are standing in the oldest Methodist building in the world, originally built in 1739 under John Wesley's instruction, extended in 1748, used as a meeting house, a medical dispensary, schoolroom, and a place for traveling preachers to stay. Okay. And a little note about John Wesley being an itinerant preacher, but Bristol being one of the main bases for his work. And you might remember that David talked about how the Bishop of Bristol politely asked him to leave because it was his parish. And Wesley was kind of like, hey, until I stop getting the calling to be in Bristol, I'm going to be in Bristol, and the whole world is my parish. Oh, this is fun. We've got a map of where everybody's visited from. And all visitors from all over the world. Now, there are quite a few from North Carolina, so I won't add a sticker just because there's already one representing us, or representing me anyway. Okay. Some of their pamphlets for Methodist Heritage. I'm going to walk upstairs, but I guess I can't take these steps. I have to take a different set of steps. But if there's anything that you want me to grab in this set, just put it in the comments and I'll grab one. Wait. Amen. So Linda said earlier that she wanted to, I was going to say hey to the live stream folks. Yep. She wanted to sing where Charles Wesley sang, and she did. She did it. That's awesome. Thanks, Linda. Guys, I'll tell you, I'm not the fastest live streamer, but sometimes that means that you get to see cool stuff like that. So, happy day. Happy day. Hey, Bob, thanks. We got it working in there. Which way should I go to check out the museum? That way? Perfect. This is my friend Bob. He's been very helpful to us today. Yep. All right. This is fun. You get some museum challenges for the kids. All right, and we're going to go upstairs. Okay. So, this is the back view. I was going to say hello, wave to our friends back at Sarah. All right. This is the pulpit. You can see there's an upper one. That's where the preaching would have happened. Oh, there's information about it. I'm going to take him down for the information. Hey, Ed. Wave to our friends back home.
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
Hi, friends back home.
Okay, and they've actually got a little bit of information here on the pulpit. And it basically says, Wesley was not afraid to say unpopular things from this pulpit about how people should live, in particular about slavery, which he condemned. And that made Bristol's merchants angry with him. So this is the view from where John Wesley would have preached. You can see you have to go up the stairs up here. And this is where you can see everybody. There's also a lower pulpit that Linda was just singing at, following the footsteps of Charles Wesley. It's actually open to a Bible, a really old Bible, on the Gospel according to St. Mark right now. So, view from here. Oh, I didn't even notice that organ until I turned around. Look at that, guys.
So how did you get up there, Connie?
So if you go out to where the gift shop is, and then you go up the steps right by the guy, whose name is Bob. What's this? Yeah. And then we can come back up these steps here. Oops. Excuse me. Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Wave to our friends back home.
Hi, friends back home.
Oh, I was going to say, look at how many friends we have. Yep. Welcome to Bristol indeed. And I'm going to scoot right past you. So, apologies. I did not take you guys all the way over here. So earlier, we were just past that wall when I walked up the first set of steps to show you guys the benches and to show you the view of the opposite balcony. Okay. But now we are up here. We're right by this organ. I'm going to read you guys a little information about the organ. It's a historic chamber organ built in 1761. It was not here in the 18th century or owned by the Wesleys, but it is quote, a fine example of an organ of this period. It was built by John Schnetzler, born in Switzerland, moved to Holland. So there you go, organ. And up here we see more of those benches, and again, John Wesley designed this space to be a flexible space, so you had benches so that you could move things around and use them for what you needed them. Looks like they do have a couple little booths here. All right, we're going to go down. Oh, I was going to say, you guys can... And also with you. Do you guys want to come in? Oh, don't doubt King's abilities with a camera. He's got a plan. He's got a plan. All right.
And then you'll be like this.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. They're taking a picture, so I'm going to leave them be. All right. So we were just at the pulpit. Now we're going to go to the preacher's rooms. So remember, this would have been a home for itinerant preachers, including Coke and Asbury and a few other folks that came through here. Observing his community and thinking how he could be the love of God to them. I think I read this in one of the earlier signs that this was a place that would provide a number of community services. David says it still does. Trying to get them back on. Oh, we're back. We're back. All right. Yep, people are slowly coming back. Sorry about that, guys. I think in the upstairs of some of these older buildings, it's hard to get signal. All right. I'm going to attempt to walk around the room. If I lose you again, I will back up to where I just was And I will attempt to tell you about the room from that spot. But this is a display about the Bristol slave trade. As I mentioned to you guys when we were in the pulpit, Wesley spoke out against slavery. And in one of the other talks, I forget which one, somebody talked about how he had a relationship with Wilberforce, who obviously was a prominent abolitionist. But yeah, it was a point of contention between him and the city of Bristol, because a lot of the city's wealth came from the involvement in the slave trade. So you guys can see here, we got some chains used for inflicting punishment. An illustration of slaves being brought, and an observation by Charles of somebody in the city whipping a slave. Oh, and her crime was overfilling a teacup. Jeez. This is a closet dedicated to housekeeping. Thanks, Martin. It says, this workroom is a reminder that the new room is a place where John Wesley and his preachers were looked after and fed. However, the housekeeper was not just responsible for organizing the cooking, cleaning, and washing. Not just responsible? Geez, I thought that was the whole role. That's a lot of stuff. But in 1743, John Wesley asked Sarah Perrin to become the housekeeper because he wanted someone who could also lead class groups and encourage good behavior. So he asked her to ensure that people behaved appropriately in the chapel and put her in charge of selling the books that he and Charles wrote. And Sarah was probably one of the first female preachers, although she was never given that title. John actually tried to get Charles to marry her because he thought she was such a good leader. But Charles married somebody else named Sally Gwynn, although according to... according to Paul, he was telling us this on the bus right here, like Sally Gwynn gave Charles a very idyllic married life. So it worked out for her. Sarah Perrin married somebody else, a lead preacher named John Jones. All right, but here's the workroom.
So this city had a large population of slaves.
All right. Got a little window with illustration of what could have seen looking out of it back in the day. Another quote from John Wesley. You have plenty of the world's goods. Why do you not share your bread with the hungry and cover the naked with some clothes? That'll preach. Jesus said something about how when we do that, we're really doing it to him. More pictures. They do not have captions. Okay, this wall has some more information about Bristol. I do recall Paul saying, so this display says, did you know Bristol was Britain's largest city after London? And Paul says that it's not that. There's like another one whose name I forget, and Bristol was supposedly the third. So, fun fact. But nonetheless, important place. Oh, hang on, I'm being pointed at something. Oh gosh. Okay, so Bristol was really large and was massively overcrowded, and there was no system of sanitation, and its streets were so clogged with filth that traders had used sledges rather than wheeled vehicles to transport goods in the city center. Yeah, that's not fun. I was going to say, yeah, feel free to just tell me. What are you seeing here?
Well, life expectancy in those days was about 50, and among the wealthy it was a little bit more, but only 6% of the population ever reached 70. But among those living in poverty, it says it's less than 35.
Oh my gosh.
So people just did not live very long. The conditions were just atrocious. And but there was this great wealth. There was this great amount of business and commerce. And there's a contrast there.
Wow. Thanks, Roger. That is crazy information. I mean, thank God on the one hand for modern medicine, but also thank thank God that people like the Wesleys are figuring out ways to make it
Exactly.
accessible to people. So Wesley making medicine accessible. It was a medical dispensary. This building was back in the day.
Precisely. That's exactly what he was trying to do. I think.
Over here, it's also talking about workhouses, and you couldn't sustain yourself, and you went into workhouses. That was a place to die.
Oh, geez.
So, and also the amount of this getting drunk was a way of forgetting how miserable. So so there's, I mean, not just disease, but there's also other things that are factoring into, what would cause not being able to survive for very long.
Yeah. Which I think makes you realize perhaps why Wesley ministered here, is that he saw a need, he saw opportunities to share to both obey God in terms of the commands that Jesus gives us for caring for the poor, but also share the love of God with the local community here.
The same kind of questions that we ask today. How can we be a rich city and most of its people live in poverty?
Precisely.
Yeah. All right, we're moving into the next room. This is an illustration of the story. I forget who told us this story, but basically when John was a kid, his father was not particularly well liked as a minister because he was very, very strict. And so someone set fire to his house, and then John got trapped inside. And his father, Samuel Wesley, had to be held back from running in after him. So he began to pray, and then the townspeople gathered and basically started stacking themselves up to get John out. As a result, Susanna Wesley would sometimes say, he is a brand plucked from the burning. Because he really was plucked out of the window as a child. All right. Here's an illustration of Epworth Marketplace, which you guys will recall from early in the week, site of John Wesley's childhood. His father was a minister there for 30 years or something. It was pretty long. And this sign is basically talking about how John Charles Wesley and the rest of their siblings were homeschooled by their mother. In fact, I forget who told us this, but somebody said that actually wound up being a disadvantage to some of the girls because then they were more educated than some of the guys, and I don't know, I guess that was intimidating or something. But John and Charles and the boys were very well prepared for their education after their mother's homeschooling. Both boys won scholarships to schools in London, John to Charterhouse, which I think we pointed out in the tour yesterday, and Charles to Westminster, which I sent you guys a photo because we didn't actually stop at Westminster.
That's honest.
And then they went on scholarship to Christ Church College, Oxford. So, a few more relics down here. What are you learning about, Roger?
I'm learning about how this all got started on the campus of Oxford University. So, this is saying that as a student, Charles felt like there was too many distractions. To remedy that, he created this religious club for himself and for his closest friends. And then he consulted John about what he should do exactly. So they started talking about, well, what would be a good thing to do? And they started talking about having good habits, and that they should do everything methodically.
I feel like they should name a Christian denomination after that.
And so they decided they would read the Bible every day, pray, serve the poor and needy in their community, meet one another, worship together, and observe certain practices such as fasting and taking communion. The name Holy Club was first given to them by other students who were kind of making fun of them. And they taunted them with the nickname Methodist.
Love how they went and they took ownership of that.
Precisely.
Kind of gives us the precursor to like covenant discipleship groups and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. What are you looking at, Dana?
I'm just looking at that right there. Dana, we're both Danas.
I was gonna say you can weigh in too. Yeah, this is for the folks back home.
These are some of the original members of the Holy Club.
All right, look at that, John Clayton. And they've got like a descriptor here. So the Jacobite churchman, and you can pull out these panels and see who they're referring to.
The Yorkshire Evangelists.
I was gonna say I don't know who the Yorkshire Evangelists. We got James Hervey, the literary parish priest.
Did you read the stuff about life expectancy and all the conditions of life?
Benjamin Ingham, the Yorkshire Evangelist.
Really?
Yeah. Paul was saying, I think that this Holy Club had about 12 people at the most, although sometimes people will say it's a lot more than that. He's like, yeah, it was just a small group. And it was not always, the Wesley started it, but they didn't stay there forever. It continued after they left Oxford. We got John Gamble, the Moravian bishop.
John Wesley described him as one of the most sensible men in England.
Wow. It's high praise. Get you a little closer look. John Gamble there.
It's a hymn writer. Problems with asthma led him to retire.
Oh, George Whitefield, the outstanding preacher. There he is. There's Mr. Whitefield.
So, befriended by Charles. Befriended by Charles.
I'm sensing a trend here. Sensing a trend.
You're the Susanna of the modern world.
That's right. Okay.
And who's the secretary of SPCK? Thomas
Society for
Brunton.
Promotion of Christian Knowledge.
You can be there like listen
Okay.
to George Whitefield.
I'll give you a close-up of this guy, too. He's a little,
One,
Curate
he's
of
got a little bit of a glare on him, so. Close-up here.
This is a curate of the Tower of London and undertook prison visiting at Newgate.
You want a picture with you? Okay.
Distributed Bibles and prayer books. Translations in Welsh and Manx.
I don't know what Manx is, but I'm a big fan of translation. Not everybody speaks the same thing. Doesn't mean that.
Not even in English.
That's true. That's true.
it's like strangely
Oh, there we go.
1, 2, 3.
Founded many charity schools for children. It's from these schools that
You
the
should
law
see our
concept
picture.
of
Oh,
primary
we're of course,
secondary
yeah.
is later developed.
Wow.
See, we did. Oh, that's how we do things.
Kids who just like going to school. Thomas to think for. Thank you for that.
I'm loving the connection here between like obeying God's commands and being very holy, and also and applying that to how you live your life in the world. Okay. There's a display talking about John Wesley feeling his heart strangely warmed. And you might remember the Aldersgate flame right here. We just visited this yesterday. It's a bronze sculpture erected in 1981 commemorating the approximate location of John Wesley's conversion, May 24, 1738. One thing that's come up a few times is that Charles had his heart strangely warmed like 3 days before John, and he wrote a hymn about it that they sang like after John got his heart strangely warmed.
Okay. I'll show you this one more.
But yeah, we don't hear about that. You might recall this is a hymn that he wrote, that Charles wrote about his experience. Chains fell off, my heart was free, I rose, went forth, and followed thee. Last quote in here before going. You must come and water what God has enabled me to plant. George Whitefield to John Wesley, 1739. Talking about
Yeah, just preach. Also.
in 1738, John and Charles Wesley met up with 5 of their Oxford friends to celebrate Christmas, and they felt that God was asking them to start a religious revival. And they went to Bristol in March of the following year to commence preaching. They couldn't preach in London because they were considered too enthusiastic or fanatical. That include the Wesleys and George Whitefield. So yeah, came to Bristol instead. Within days of Whitefield coming, and then the Wesleys came after, he was preaching to crowds of thousands. And then he went to America and asked John Wesley to come and take over. All right. Hey, King. Okay.
My book,
Okay. This room
Perfect Love.
looks like we're talking about modern slavery.
It's a plain account of Christian perfection. It's an important book that I translated into contemporary English. And
This display showcases some of the
wanted to make
placards
sure I
used
didn't
during the
screw it up.
2020
So
Black
I had
Lives
4
Matter
Wesley scholars review the
protests
manuscript before
and connects them to some
one
of
of
John
my
Wesley's
goals with that
efforts
project was to footnote
with slavery in the
of
1700s.
the quotes of the scripture, because Wesley would
So-
just drop in scripture and not tell you where it is. And so I was able to footnote all of the scripture, all of the scripture, and then there were certain quotes that I couldn't find in the Bible. I didn't know what they were. And it was Randy Maddox, who was one of the readers. He identified all the stuff I couldn't identify. Like these quotes that I thought were scripture were actually quotes from the Book of Common Prayer. And then there's a long section in the middle of the book that I thought was but it's actually a French theologian that Wesley greatly admired, writing about perfection and love. And Wesley just took that French man's, translated into English, and dropped it in his book.
Oh, wow.
So Randy identified the source of that. So that's all footnoted in A Perfect Love.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I also figured out there were scripture passages that, quotes that he puts into the book that don't match up with the author, the King James Version, which is the Bible, the version of the Bible that he most typically used. That's because was the authorized Bible.
Right.
Well, I'm convinced that the scripture quotations that don't line up with the King James are probably his own translation of the Hebrew or the Greek, because he knew Hebrew and Greek.
Right.
And maybe he didn't like the way the King James translators translated.
He wouldn't be the first.
passages.
Very interesting.
So John put his own translation into the text of a plain account.
Huh.
So all that stuff is footnoted in A Perfect Love.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but like thoughts upon slavery are based upon other works of people that Wesley respected.
But if you have an influence of a large group of people,
Right.
to be able to pull all those thoughts together and share that,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
And this, all of these works are available free online.
Wow.
hmm. That's interesting, very interesting.
You know, we started with the choir group. Not that, but I'm gonna go home and just look again at that list of suggested reading.
I can give you a whole lot more thorough bibliography if you want.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's just.
We might email you about that sometime, because I'm gonna go home and do some kind of series.
There's so much to. It's, it's interesting because so he's from the church point of view, and I'm from the what we do in a conference point of view. Like one of our focuses is alleviating poverty and then disaster response. So it's it's kind of cool to take from both perspectives.
Did I tell you my revelation this morning?
I don't know what that does.
You'd think that it would play a video about John Wesley's.
Oh, is that?
Well, okay, it says pupils from 5 local primary schools created a series of animated and live action films reflecting John Wesley's beliefs and ideas. And then there's 12 topics that you can play, but we can't figure out how to get them to play.
Well, apparently it's not working
Oh,
right now.
Yeah, which is a bummer because we've got everything from, you guys can see, from welfare, employment, helping the poor, and education, encouragement, tolerance, equality for women, social values, anti-slavery, anti-war, all equal, and the environment. I would have loved to have seen this. I mean, both as a member of this pilgrimage and also as an educator.
Well, one member of staff is downstairs. Tall, slender woman with glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Kate, I think, is her name.
I saw her talking to Bob
You could
earlier.
Ask her. I don't know. Maybe they can turn this on, or maybe they don't know it's not working. I don't know.
Yeah, might have to do that when we get back from the house because I
Yeah.
think we're leaving. Are we just meeting back in the chapel for the house?
We're having lunch at 1 o'clock. No, you're going to go from the house to lunch.
Oh, like just lunch.
Lunch here. It's a catered lunch that they're serving us
Yes.
in the classroom up here.
Yes.
Did you want to go see the house? 'Cause
I was saying they're leaving for the house now. Are we meeting down in the chapel to go to the house now?
Yeah. If you want to go to the
Okay.
house, you should get down there now.
Let's go. We're going to go.
Let's go. I took a picture of some other things that I'll show you later.
Oh, please do, Roger.
Oh, okay.
You might have been talking to Dana, but
Yeah, it's just more stuff that it's like I didn't know that resource existed. I didn't
Uh-huh.
know that resource existed.
yeah. We'll get you back. Okay, we're back. Oh, Ben, did you grab our giant bottle of water?
What did you say?
I said, did you grab our giant bottle of water?
I've got my bottle.
Okay, I gotta grab our giant bottle of water. Thank you, by the way. We mentioned earlier that you have been providing a means of grace, Martin. So let me go back and get it from the room. There it is. Okay. We're about to go to see Charles Wesley's house. Oh, Steve is unable to see that display of the kids talking about John Wesley's ideas. Worry. Oh. We're gathering. Yes, Paul is supposed to take us. Does anybody see Paul? Oh, sorry. All right. Sorry, guys. Give us just a few minutes to get organized. I think that we're going to wait outside so that we can go to the house.
Well, that's like another.
So we're just waiting in the entrance to the museum. My phone is being lifted so that you may see Charles Wesley actually. Somebody pointed out it's interesting that John Wesley's new room has a statue of Charles Wesley in front of it. Both brothers were involved in their ministry, obviously. It's just kind of a funny juxtaposition. All right, I'm going to attempt to back up so that I can get out of the middle of the way. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but somebody just mentioned a non-conformist coffee, so that's amusing.
Sorry guys to be a little bit late, but a serendipity day for me. I don't know if you saw the Florida young pastors group that just came through. Half of them are former students of mine. All of them I know. There was only one person I didn't know in that group, so I'm just on cloud nine.
Aww.
Let's head on over. Thank you. I'm not going to go slow. This is fine.
All good.
Okay. Here we go. Oh, sorry.
You got such long legs.
See the house, walk back.
I mean, there's part of me goes. That might be the doctors. I mean, you say they do weddings. You say they do weddings. I wonder how many people live there.
Where did you go to Starbucks? Oh my gosh, this stuff is so cute. We gotta go here.
Doesn't it look like a fun store?
Yes, look at these.
People are admiring the storefront that has these giant red horses.
I was wondering.
I'll be like, lunch. Are you shopping?
Did you see the dress-up closet? There was a dress-up like people from Leslie's time closet. And
Be models. You'll have to show us that when we get back.
Like 4 storefronts further down the past Burger King. It's all Burger King.
Oh, I noticed that darn in here, huh? Okay. I like them.
I also think that the U.S. should adopt the red-yellow line.
I do too.
That'd be a comfortable place to see.
I don't know why. I always wonder why we don't.
In Asia, like this in China, they actually have pieces of time in stock.
I feel like Burger King is just to be consistent. So like you go to McDonald's, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, I know I'm getting those wrong. Yep. Maybe you should get one on the way. Did you hear what they said to me about the last year? Okay. And his wife, they were like, did a great job pointing out every sale in the city.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
About 2/3 of the church.
Oh, gosh. That's brutal.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, we were really able to focus on this wrestling. And the folks who were there are super committed. And they're willing to try new things.
Fantastic.
And focus on one thing at a time.
Psych class I took in college.
We've been able to try some new stuff. You know, we're doing message church, so we're trying to reconnect with the people.
All right.
And yeah, so see some good fruit there. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is the thing that I said. I think some of my folks do is you try something that we want to say.
Sorry if it's a little bumpy, guys. We are on stone, and it is not completely level.
You know, because of all the things that a lot of people haven't kind of went through for the past. And giving it through. Right. It's all the same.
You guys know we're also walking by this little park. We're walking through the park, actually. You might recall this is the park I sent you guys in a picture. There's that monument. Oh, I think we might be going to it, actually. Zooming in just a little. Sacred to the memory of John, Martha, Maria, Susanna, Selena, and John James, 5 infant children of the Reverend Charles Wesley, M.A.
Lucky number.
Of Sarah, his wife, who are buried here,
Where are you from? Originally West Virginia.
and also their daughter, Sarah Wesley, who died
5 years in Ohio.
September 19th, 1828. I'm sure Paul will say a little bit more.
Everybody can see. There's not a lot that I need to say here. I think it's pretty self-evident. 5 of the children buried here, and also Sarah, their surviving child, one of them, who is a really critical figure in their home. I think I said this on the coach, it's starting to blur a bit, but John Wesley had no children and had a very unhappy marriage. Sally and Charles had a great marriage and children, but as was the case in the 18th century, child mortality was around 50%. So they lost a lot of children. Now that does something to me. I've told you, I think, I'm the father of 5 daughters. I also had a stillborn son.
Oh, wow.
Shapes you. Those things do something to you. Shaped Charles in a way that John was never shaped. So it's just an important thing, I think, to remember. But this is, you know what now, that this is actually consecrated burial ground for St. James Parish. So again, the Charles Wesley side of the family is just so deeply entrenched within the Anglican heritage. There's nothing going to pull them out of it. So just continue on to the house.
Make that move from Ohio.
Short version is one of my memories who was in
So again, St. James Parish Church. So again, knock down department stores, and you know how close we are.
We're very close. Yeah.
Okay, but don't say yes before you talk to me.
And so, the more I listened, the more I was like, oh, shoot, this sounds exactly like me. And my wife was like, really? We thought, and this is a joke we always tell.
So again, guys, we just came from St. James's Place, consecrated burial ground, monument to the Wesley family members buried there, and St. James's. And Ken is saying hi.
This is you.
I was gonna say, wave to the Earls, guys. Wave to the folks back at Sarum. Everybody say hi. Say hi.
Wrong name, sorry.
Sorry, guys. Cobblestones. Hard to walk on and keep everything level. Jane was just doing his air traffic controller bit from yesterday to tell us we're going through this tunnel.
This is known as the Bear Pit. That's what the Bristolians call it.
Really?
It's an area in the middle of this big roundabout.
Wonder why they call it that.
They used to have a big bear statue.
Oh.
So the bear statue is gone. This is what Bristolians call the Bear Pit. There used to be a big statue of a bear somewhere around here, so they just called it the Bear Pit. But we're going to go through here and then up on the other side of the track.
Yes.
Not gonna lie, kind of bummed that we're not seeing the bear statue, especially coming from all the bear statues in my hometown. Or not hometown, current town.
Within 45 minutes is about 3/4 of a million, which is like more than half the state's population. You know, so it has been time for about 20 years. Really just building.
How many other Methodist churches in Boise?
Yeah, one Boise proper, or in that 45 minutes. Kind of like, you know.
in North Carolina, you have to go straight. I think the conference knew there was something around the level. Right. But I think they thought, well, everybody knows who's going to want to win. Right. I've heard about half my friends. I'm pretty enthusiastic.
Well, so you say notice how it was more organized with information too?
Yeah. I mean, as a pastor, and I know part of this is not I felt so under resourced of what alternative narrative will be offered.
Right.
And so my superintendent came and gave sort of a, I guess it's called there, but it was much more than just, this is what the local looks like, none of the local. All I said is, do I actually feel like I need to be ready to defend them. Not in a, everybody got something.
Okay.
Dan, I don't know.
I could say for me as a Christian challenge, I have all these not only I didn't necessarily have the right to do it. No. Right? Like, no, I think what they did was to say that. I'm like, I'm sure they thought about that. Yeah. True, but maybe I wasn't I don't know. I mean, I didn't think it was that important or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind the chance to just there. I was telling somebody, I'd say the same for undergrad and then. I don't think I would really change here.
Yeah. Oh, here we are.
Just be conscious of traffic that may be coming through here.
Is this it?
This is it. Did anybody bring the spray can?
Come on in.
Lived here from 49 to 71. Wow.
The times they are a changing.
Yeah.
You all, again, be thoughtful of the traffic, but it looks pretty quiet right now. Just kind of stay close to me here to say a few things. But there's not too much to say in terms of time in particular. So at the beginning of Steve and my doing pilgrimages here, there was no building next to the Charles Wesley home, which was really nice because it kind of stood out distinctively. That was demolished, I don't know, probably 25 years ago or so. Then they decided to put in a new complex there, which is fine. But obviously this is in a different setting now, with a graffiti, et cetera, something you probably wouldn't expect that you're going to see Charles Wesley's house. It's the reality of this area now. So as you can see, these double windows to the top, this was their house. There was an area down below, kind of a crypt type area, where they would receive coal. was a coal. Have you ever lived in homes that had coal?
Yep.
A coal chute that goes straight down there. The kitchen was on that bottom sub-ground level in the back of the house, which is nice. Many English homes, terraced homes, were like this because it's cool there. Otherwise, the house would be unbearable, especially in the summer, cooking, big fire, and everything else roaring. So that would be there. Then on the same level, you go out the back to a small garden. Just a small garden. I think the Wesleys at the time, Sally particularly, would have had it appointed, kind of ways with flowers, a lot of rose, cooking, and that sort of thing. Kind of an earned flower garden, but a quiet space back there. The next rooms here, this was a receiving room. Behind it, each level back aspect of it. The room behind this one on the first level is the music room. So now they have a period harpsichord in the room, the pictures of the children, the sons that were musical and did music. Just a quick story or two here. Charles and Sally had a son named after John Wesley, who was, many have claimed, documents, a musical prodigy. If any of you do music, musicians, before he was 1 year of age, they say he was able to sing a perfect scale.
Wow.
That just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. But he died at 1 year of age.
Oh.
And smallpox was the killer. That's what killed most of these younger children. Charles, as you may well imagine, composed a hymn. It's entitled For a Child in the Smallpox, which is one of the most powerful hymns of Charles Wesley's. I'll see if I can get a copy of that and put that in the...
You had that in the annotated book.
Sorry?
It's in the annotated book that we read for...
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. What? Is that
I don't know what book that is.
Sermon? I don't know sometimes what
Yeah, no.
So great, if it's in there,
Yeah,
then
it
you
was
read it
crazy.
maybe and know where it is. Read it again with that background. And then you just move up to the living levels, the bedrooms for the children, etc. What you can't see because we're too close to the building is the loft. At the very top, a dormer and a single window on top of the roof. That's when Charles Wesley composed. Again, pull down all these buildings. This was simply a simple residential area, but there were not buildings on that side because you were moving into the broad beam. So it's kind of a segue into large open pasture land. In other words, Charles, from that room up there, could look all the way down through the city of Bristol to the quay, the harbor. So this was a port city, right? So tall masted ships in and out of there all the time. I mean, it must have been a really beautiful sight to see what was going on, aside from the fact of slavery that so many of those vessels were involved in. So he had a beautiful view out across this expansive space and looking toward the Bristol Quay.
Oh, sorry.
This was an unbelievably happy home. They oftentimes have recitals for their children. There was John and Samuel, were the two surviving sons. I never can remember if it's John or Sam. I think it's John. John's name was Samuel Sebastian Wesley, who composed the tune for the church's One Foundation. He said. He's a very good composer.
So that'd be Charles's grandson?
Yes, Charles' grandson. And most of them were exceptional violinists and keyboardists. One, and I can't remember which one off the top of my head right now, became the organist at Bath Abbey. You can imagine, you're the organist at Bath Abbey. That's a huge position. I think he was also at Gloucester Cathedral. So again, get the image of an Anglican family really deeply entrenched in the Church of England. Although the son and grandson, either John or Samuel, I don't remember, might have been Samuel, the father of Samuel Sebastian, which would make sense, became Roman Catholic. Interesting transition. Right. This was an unbelievably happy home for them. 1771, they make the move to London and resettle there in Marylebone, where we had passed whatever that was.
That's where he's buried.
Yeah, where they're both Sally and Charles are buried.
Paul, when you talk about the slave trade, were enslaved people sold here? I mean, was there it was just the shipping industry?
It's yes and no. It's not a simple answer.
Okay.
But basically, it's the triangle.
Right.
It's a slave triangle. So from Bristol to the west coast of Africa, primarily, and to the Americas.
To the Caribbean.
And then back.
Yeah.
But sometimes there was a trade that continued Africa back to England.
Sure.
But it was minor in comparison to that much more lucrative trade with the colonies.
Sure.
But there were Africans who were brought directly back to England.
Okay.
And was that the introduction then of Africans to England? Or were they there before?
I wouldn't say that was the introduction. There were Africans in England before simply because of their exploration.
Okay.
But brought back to England, how do I put this? More as objects of interest. You know, so a white English person could see a black person. That was put into service, into a form of slavery, not like American slavery, but still slavery. Slavery's slavery. Get around that. Well, great. I think we better get back. What we're going to do is go straight across. It's just about 2 minutes till. We'll go back through the bear pit, but all the way through it across to the other side.
Okay.
And there may be a way actually for us to cut through rather than going all the way down the block. I'll try to get you through that.
Thank Thanks for joining us.
It's as shut as a moon.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we're on the outside.
Are you doing a tour of all the Wesleyan?
Linda, can you do me a favor?
Yeah, we're on pilgrimage.
Can you do me a favor? Can you hold this so I can flip the camera around? Okay, so we just finished seeing John Wesley's house. One thing I forgot to point out, because Paul, of course, explained it all, is that there is a small plaque right there that describes that it's John Wesley's house and when the family lived there. And you can see those are the dormers that he was talking about earlier as well, where Charles Wesley would have composed. Okay.
Consecrated as superintendents.
Were they lay people
Were they ordained
before?
Church of England? Have they been ordained when they were in Church of England?
No.
They were lay people.
Coke was.
Okay, so Asbury was a lay person until he was consecrated.
You mean a journey.
it actually states Thomas Cook ordained in Spanish.
Okay, sorry about that. Pretty much, Paul was just explaining that Koch and Asbury weren't ordained; they were consecrated to be superintendents. But there were a number of other people that John Wesley did ordain to be pastors. So we're walking back now. If I'm going to leave the feed on just for another minute or so that if you have any questions you want me to pass on to Paul, then I can pass those on. If not, I'll be closing the feed, like I said, in just about a minute or so, because the next thing that we're going to do is have lunch. So not much for us to live stream in terms of your spiritual and Methodist knowledge there. So, do either of you guys have any questions for Paul about Charles Wesley's house or about what we've seen so far in the new room today? So just throw them in here. After the feed ends, of course, if you think of something, then you can put it in the WhatsApp chat and I'll pass that on to Paul or David or Steve later. Yeah, no problem, Janine. Glad you guys were able to join. Okay, this happened the other day. So MO is sometimes an abbreviation for more. So anytime somebody types mo questions, I don't know if you mean more questions or no questions. So that's why I always ask. Okay, no questions. Great. All right, well, I'm going to stop live streaming now so that we can cross the street, and we'll pick back up with Zoom this afternoon when we do the Q&A with David and with Paul. All right, see you guys later.